How to protect your real estate. We all know it's going up in value here in San Diego, but how do you protect yourself and protect your real estate for you and your heirs? We got Alan Kinzel, my good buddy in here.
Thanks.
What's going on, my friend?
Good to see you, Derrick.
Good to see you, brother. So when you own real estate and you're here,
Right.
you're essentially the trustee.
Right.
Right? If you have a trust
Right.
and you pass, that trustee may become someone else who then owns the real estate. Either way, though, we have to protect the real estate. Is that right, Alan?
You have to protect yourself too.
Protect yourself, yeah.
So oftentimes trustees, especially in California, the trustees may live anywhere else in the United States, right?
Yeah.
But they're now the trustee of this real estate that's in San Diego. And oftentimes with trusts, the way it works is, excuse me, the beneficiaries could be your brothers, sisters, and people oftentimes, believe it or not, Derrick, brothers and sisters sometimes don't get along.
Get out of town.
No, seriously. They don't get along, or they're in different phases of their life and they have different motivations. Like some want to sell the real estate right away, day one, for whatever price they can get. Other ones want to make sure they get the top dollar for it. But you got to look out for their best interest for that.
Yeah, well, it's always hard to make a decision by committee, right?
It really is.
It's difficult for a group of people to agree on making a decision
Right.
at any point in time. I don't care if the three of us in here decided, hey, where are we going to eat lunch today, guys?
Right.
That would take a minute, right? And it would be tough. Now, talk about eating, us being guys, we probably figured it out pretty quick. But when you talk about siblings, making a decision about something that is collectively theirs, you're always going to have issues there.
And there's different motivations. Sometimes one sibling just wants to stick it to another sibling or do something that just to get back at them because they threw a rock at them in third grade or something.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all kinds of things that go on. So what you want to do, you're now the trustee. You have this responsibility, and you got to protect yourself. You don't want to have any other legal liabilities that come your way because you didn't do the right thing. So I'm going to give you some tips to kind of to go through that process, come out of it clean, and do the right thing and maximize the return for your estate.
I love it. Let's go. Let's jump into the tips.
So the first tip, there aren't in any particular order, but one thing I'd first do is I'd do an appraisal on the property before you even, or right when you're about to list it. So you get it right current to the time you're going to list it, especially if you don't live in San Diego. Because, in Nebraska, $1 million might sound like you just won the lottery. But if that property is worth $1.3 million or $1.4 million, you just left $300,000 on the table that you otherwise shouldn't have done. And you're relying on the people who have the boots on the ground here locally. But even if you are in San Diego, do an appraisal, keep it in your file to protect yourself. Now, the property's not going to appraise for appraised value, not going to sell for appraised value. It's going to sell for some other value, but it's an estimate. It'll give you a ballpark idea of where you're at. So
can I just check the Zestimate and the Redfin estimate, Alan?
Well, those are not very accurate, as you know. Zillow really likes.
People believe it, though.
I know, but Zillow
They
wants you
do.
to feel rich. They really do. They want you to feel very good about your property, and they may be off positive or negative, actually, depending on the view of the property. Especially in California, we have some great, amazing views that might add $1 million to the value, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Zillow doesn't understand which way that place is facing. Just get an appraisal and do that. Now, the next thing I do, Derrick, is when you're talking to your agent and interviewing your agent, whether it be me or whoever, I would make it up front and tell them you're not going to do any dual agency. Now, I'm not talking about dual agency with the same brokerage. I'm talking about dual agency with the same agent.
Okay.
So, because there's a lot of liability that you don't need to take on as a trustee. It's a dual agency is a real estate attorney's dream.
Right.
Because that's where all of the issues come from. But, whether they sold it to their buddy for a discount or didn't get totally market value out because they wanted to maximize their commission. I'm not saying that there's people out there that do that, but there are people out there that'll do that.
Well, and so what you're saying is limit your liability. As the trustee,
Exactly.
just talk to the agent who's going to list the property and say, listen, I don't want you to represent any buyers on this property.
Right. You're representing me as a seller, only me. I want you to look out for my interest and nobody else's.
Yeah. Which is an interesting conversation, broader conversation
Right.
all in itself.
Yep.
But particularly in this scenario, as the trustee, you don't want any liability. You don't want anything coming back on you. You don't want one of the other beneficiaries coming back and saying, hey, he's used a realtor who sold it to his buddy and they
Right.
could have sold it for more money and
Right.
now you owe me that money.
Or maybe they skip something on a disclosure or an inspection or something because they want to just get it through to get their commission and they put you at risk.
Yes.
You don't want anything to go wrong. And there's no reason. You don't benefit anything more by allowing somebody to do that dual agency.
That's right.
I would just tell them, hey, I'm not going to do that up front. And that would be tip number 2.
Oh, I love that. These are great tips so far.
So number 3 is I would actually do a chain of title and run title early on just to make sure that title agrees that you are actually the trustee and you can actually sell that property. You want to get all the way down the road and all of a sudden find out you're not even legally or title doesn't agree that you're the trustee of the property. You might have some legal cleanup to do to make sure that you are.
Okay.
But just take care of that first. And the fact that when you're the trustee, you did not live in that property. You don't have the history of the property that the owners might have had. So you have to be almost like a detective. Okay? So it doesn't cost a lot of money for somebody to put a lien on your property. Say there's liens there. Do you know if they're real or not? You want to know that up front. You don't want to be racing around at the end to find out if these liens are legitimate and whether they need to be paid off.
Basically just researching the steps in the transaction, because typically title doesn't come in until after you're in escrow, and then you open escrow, and then you get the title or whatever. So you're saying get that up front.
Right.
Face any issues, deal with those ahead of time. You don't want to go on the market, get in contract, have to go off the market or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not good. Here's a question for
Okay.
you. So pre-listing inspection. Now,
Yes.
talking about doing our due diligence, in some instances, particularly with a property that someone might be trying to help facilitate a sale on for which they had not lived in or they have not seen or they don't know a lot of information about, ignorance can be better in some cases as a seller.
It can be, absolutely.
So do you do that extra step and do the inspection because you know a buyer is going to do one?
So it's a case-by-case basis. I would say that you might as well do it because the buyer is going to do one, right? And so you want to know, that's going to go to one of my other tips here in terms of analyzing whether you want to fix the property up or just sell it, as is, or what you're going to do in terms of how much money you even have in the trust or in the estate to be able to do work like that. If you have some money, it may make sense to at least do paint and fix up some of these things that are come up on the inspection, to your point, and so that it's a very clean and you're going to get the top dollar for it. It's going to show better, right? Mm-hmm. When you don't have all the wood, the damaged wood and everything, it's going to show better anyway.
Will it hurt you if you do the inspection and then ultimately decide to sell to an investor, because now you have to disclose all the stuff that you may have found that you don't like?
Well, investors really don't. They
Nothing
understand
scares
that
them off.
they're going to discount it anyway. They're going to discount it anyway. So they're going to discount it 15% or whatever their number is, and so they're going to overlook a lot of the stuff on the inspection anyway. I wouldn't worry about that at all.
Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know.
But the next thing I would really, Derrick, a lot of people make this mistake, and you want to keep it on the market for at least a week.
Okay.
Okay. So I had for instance, I had a similar situation with a trust deal in Carlsbad, and the neighbors wanted to buy the place. They wanted their daughter to live in the place. They were going to pay full market value. How do you know what market value is if you don't put it on the market?
Really don't.
You don't. How do you know what market value is if it hadn't sat there for enough time for people to actually see it and come ponder it and tell you what they're going to pay you for it? Because as you said earlier to me, you said something really wise. You said the seller has to go first when they put the offer price out, right?
Yeah.
And so we don't know if that's market value or not. Well, in this particular case, I advised the people to not do that we need to put on the market for a week. It ended up selling for $200,000 more than what we thought the market value was at that time, because it was a phenomenon that we were in. Mm-hmm. But that happens.
That does happen. And you wouldn't find that out if you just got an appraisal and sold it for that.
But not only that, but you have the upset brother saying, why did you take that offer? You didn't even let the market say what the price is.
Yeah. How long do you need? So you said leave it on the market for a week before you, at least 1 week, right? That's enough time to say, okay, let people have the chance to see the property, have time to then go view the property,
right.
Then time to write an offer, ponder those different things. Takes about a week, you'd say, for that to
I
go
would
down?
say, because you
Or
got to
at
go
least
through a
week.
cycle. So everybody's got a different work week and a different work cycle. They have different cycles where they're looking online, etc. I think a week where you give everybody, some people work Monday through Friday, some people work Tuesday through Sunday. I like to have a whole week where you have everybody go through a cycle looking at real estate.
Gotcha. Okay, so at least 1 week to give them a chance to find their day
Right.
where they can get out and go see it
Right.
and decide if they like the property
Right.
or not.
We already talked about a little bit about fixing it up, but some of the things you can do to fix it up and not fix it up. But you really ought to consider whether you you do some minor, at least cosmetic fixes to the property to make it show the best. Maybe stage it as well and get the top
Yeah, if you have the
dollar for it.
budget, staging for sure is a good idea. So you say, get an appraisal. This might be $500 or $600
Right.
probably. Get the pre-listing inspection, probably also $500-600, right?
Right.
Something like that. So you're in for $1,000, let's
Right.
say. You're in for $1,000, and now you know what it's going to appraise for. You know all the nooks and crannies of the property, what might be wrong with it, what might be actually really good. Hey, it's got a really strong roof, got a long life, left on it. Oh, hey, great. And you can kind of from there decide, okay, if we want to fix it up, I can trust you to tell me, Alan, hey, how much should I put into this place
Right.
to really make it make sense?
And if you're working with a really good trust, probate kind of an agent like myself or whoever might be out there, we have a strong database of people that we've worked with, and throwing people out of the database when they haven't performed the way we thought, and keep elevating the database. So we have some pretty good people that we feel comfortable with. They can help with those kinds of things.
Okay, yeah, as far as figuring out,
Right.
what to do and how much it's going to cost to get a few things done. I think it's always good, especially if you have a property that's vacant,
Right.
to go ahead and do some of those things. It's easier to put new flooring into a vacant property or to paint a vacant property.
Right.
It's a much easier process.
Very much easier. And staging does wonders, as we all know.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother subject.
What do you think about virtual staging?
It's kind of interesting. So you get people in the door through virtual staging. When they show up, it shows much different. So, but at least you're in the game because they came in the door. The jury's out on the effects of that. But I haven't done it. I like to do real staging because I like to create an emotional attachment where people come in and they see, I could see myself living here. I don't want them to really come into a vacant room as much. Although sometimes we have to do it that way.
Yeah.
But we just kind of stage or show it the best that we can.
Yeah, totally makes sense. These have been great tips, Alan. Really appreciate your time.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming down, man. This is super, super good stuff. For people who are going through this process, which is unique to them, it's something they'll probably only go through once in their life. It's a big deal. There's liability there, there's emotions there, there's family connections
Right.
there. So to get advice and to have someone that you can trust to contact regarding this type of situation, that's terrific. Alan, thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks,
man.
Derrick. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate your
Thanks.
time. Hey, share this with your friends. Let's help make them smarter than everyone else when it comes to probate sales.